Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. Today I wanted to give you a grand tour of my garden at the end of summer 2020. So let's get started. When I moved in about a year ago, all that was here was this shrub up here. So it was a mock orange, and that was the only shrub that they had in the front yard. The rest of this was grass. So I really wanted to do something different with the front yard and kind of give me more privacy as well as add interest. So I added these two gardens and did all of this by hand. I cut out the grass, I laid the mulch, I planted everything. So I just kind of wanted to walk you through some of the plants that are up here and why I love them, and then also give you a tour of some different areas of the yard. All right, so starting with this garden here, I added in quite a lot of ornamental grasses, and I don't remember the names of all these, so I'll put them on the screen. But these are really beautiful. These get like these purple kind of wispy, I don't know what you call these. We'll just call them wispies at the top of the grass. And then as temperatures cool, they will fade to a deep purple maroon color. So it's a really pretty fall interest grass. This is a red twig dogwood, and right now it has its summer color as far as the branches go. But as it gets cooler in the winter months, it actually turns a very bright fire red. So it's a really nice winter interest plant because it sticks out against the white snow. Right here we have a green sea juniper, and so that's a very low growing juniper. It will spread out and kind of fill in this area, and again, really great winter interest because it's an evergreen, so it does stay green throughout the whole year, which is nice. Back here behind all these grasses we have a tuxedo wigelia, is I believe how you pronounce it. And so this is a dark kind of maroon green foliage, and then it does get white flowers on it throughout the summer. And then this here is the mock orange. So mock orange is a really pretty shrub to have because in the springtime it gets white flowers on it that smell like citrus, which is why it's called the mock orange. And then it also has this beautiful chartreuse green color throughout the rest of the season. These are a really great shrub if you want to have a privacy hedge because they can take pruning really well and they grow super quick. I mean, I had pruned this thing way back this year. It's like all of these shoots are new. So quite a lot of growth this year alone. Here is another ornamental grass. This is quickly becoming one of my favorites. Again, I'm blanking on the name. I want to say that it's a October something grass. I'll put it on the screen. But this gets 4 to 6 feet tall. So it's just this really tall, beautiful grass. It has these really interesting, again, I don't know what we call them, but we'll just call them wispies on the top. This here is a baby blue eyes Colorado blue spruce. This is a really great option if you don't have a very large area to grow an evergreen, because these only get about 10 to 12 feet wide and about 30 to 40 feet tall. So really good option for small areas. It's a blue spruce, so it has a beautiful blue color throughout the whole year. And again, it is an evergreen, so you're gonna have a lot of great winter interest. This is beautiful when there's a nice fresh layer of snow on it. So this here is a Little Devil's 9-bark standard. So oftentimes when you hear someone call something a standard, what we're implying is that it is tree form. It's just a fancy way of saying tree form. So this is typically actually a shrub, but over the years it was trained to be a tree. So the lower half of its growth has been cut off and then trained to only have growth at the top. This is a beautiful option to bring in this dark kind of red, black color and purple color to your landscape. In the spring, it gets white pink flowers on it, and then they fade to berries. And then those add really nice fall and winter interest as well once the leaves have fallen off, because it has these little seed pods on the end. And then the other thing with 9-barks that makes them really unique is they have a really cool kind of like peeling paper bark, hence why I think they're called 9-barks. So that adds some really cool interest as well. All right, so in this bed I wanted to point out a few different things. There are some plants that are repeats on both sides of the yard, so I'm going to cover those that we haven't looked at yet. So starting here with this juniper, this is an Andorra juniper, and the reason why I like this one is it acts like a ground cover. So this one spreads about 6 feet wide and only gets about, at most, I think about 13 inches tall. So it stays very low. It's a great option to have as an underplanting. This kind of bright yellow ground cover next to it is called Creeping Jenny. And that is another great ground cover. It spreads very quickly and has a beautiful yellow color throughout the whole growing season. This here is a autumn, I want to say it's autumn joy, but I might be wrong about that. I'll put it on the screen if it isn't. Sedum. So this is starting to get its buds to open. They typically open late summer into early fall. And then these will dry out. And so I leave them in the winter because it adds some cool winter interest amongst the snow. Let's see. Back here, I wanted to point out this grass. So this is called a little blue stem. So this typically has a blue tint to the grass. And then as the temperatures cool down, it fades to kind of an orange brown, and it has beautiful fall coloring to it. So, and again, this one stays, it's kind of like a spreading grass versus extremely upright like some of the ones next to it. So just adds a nice cool texture. All right, here, so I have 2 of these trees planted here. You can see if you come over here. So these are actually individual trees that I planted as a clump. I wanted to have a really interesting architectural kind of element here with the trees. So one thing I wanted to point out, if you can see, is the one on the left has quite a bit thicker trunk than the one on the right. So I had to rotate this tree because the side of it had died over the winter. So unfortunately, it kind of stunted its growth, but I planted these at the same time last year, and they were these really spindly, like barely had any leaves on them type of trees. And I just wanted to show you that like this spring, they were both the size of the trunk on the right, and how fertilizer and consistent watering has helped the one on the left really beef out. So these are a poplar Siouxland tree, and they're a super fast growing tree, so really great if you want to add some quick privacy to your yard. They get these beautiful leaves on them that kind of make a clapping sound when the wind ruffles through them, and then in the fall they have a bright yellow leaf color. So it's a really pretty tree to have in your yard, and fast growing. I mean, you can see the difference between these two. I mean, this is what the height was for the most part in the spring of both. And then you can see this one has just shot up like crazy. So again, really great option if you're looking to have a fast growing tree. And this has only been here for a year. So it's got a huge amount of growth on it. And the size of the leaves are just insane compared to when I planted it last year. Right here, so this is a midsummer wine 9-bark, so similar to the 9-bark standard over there, but this is what they typically look like in a shrub form. So this is a very, again, dark kind of red, purple foliage, and this one as well gets white and pink flowers in the spring with some berries throughout the summer. Right here is a limber pine, I believe is what it's called. This is another great option if you don't have a lot of space in your yard or garden for an evergreen, because a lot of evergreens can typically get 50 to 60 feet tall or taller, and then 30 to 40, even sometimes 50 feet wide. So this one only gets about 15 feet wide, and it gets about 30 feet tall. So it's a very slim option for a pine tree. So it's really nice if you want to have something up close to the house, because you don't have to worry about it getting too large for that. So it has a beautiful blue color to it, and again adds some great winter interest in this side of the garden. Again, this one is a very fast growing tree. These offshoots were not here last year. So, I mean, this has all come in just in 1 year. So, and it has really beefed out as well. So a really great option again for a fast growing tree if you're looking for some quick privacy. This here, I always blank on the name, but it is a willow. So this will get quite a bit larger and fill in this space. It kind of was stunted. I had it in the spot in the backyard that was not getting enough sun. So it will fill in, and it has this beautiful wispy foliage to it. So when the breeze comes through, it adds some really nice movement to this side of the yard. All right, so this side of my house used to be all grass. So when I moved in last year, this was a sloped grass area, and I was kind of trying to decide what do I do with it. It felt like just kind of wasted space on the side of the house. It's relatively close to my neighbor's yard, so I didn't want to do anything that got too large or would overhang into their yard. And I really wanted to do my own food production. So I was thinking, what do I do over there? And I decided I should put in some raised beds. So a couple things I wanted to point out was, first of all, I moved all this gravel by hand. I built the raised beds, and I hauled all the dirt by hand. So it was a lot of work, but it was totally worth it. The other thing is I had a slight moment this spring where I thought that this perhaps was not going to end up being the best spot, because as you can see right now, we're in the morning time right now. And I want to say it's maybe 7:30ish, a little bit after. So the sun is shining, but my neighbor's house casts a shadow on this garden until about 9 o'clock. And then as the sun moves, my house then will cast a shadow on it around, I think basically what I'm getting at is that it only gets about 5.5 hours of sun, maybe 6 throughout the whole day. And so my point is that I was thinking I put this in the wrong spot, because most food production needs 6 or more hours in order to produce really great produce. And so I was thinking I might have to move this, and that would be a lot of work, but I also want to make sure that I have a garden that gives me great production. But I just felt like we're just going to try it this year. We'll see what happens. I can always move it another year if I need to. And honestly, I am so impressed with how stuff is growing for not getting a full 6 hours of sun. This has been insane growth. So I wanted to show you guys this side of the garden and kind of walk you through some of the plants that are in here. So this kind of first bed here has all tomato plants. There's a Roma on the end, which I am terrible about my tomato plant maintenance. So this is just way overgrown, but it's kind of at the end of the season. So I'm going to just let it do its thing. And what I get off of it is what I get off of it. There's cherry tomatoes in here. So those have been producing like crazy. And I've been eating lots of those. Over here, I've got 2 Beefmaster tomatoes. So these are just massive, bigger than my hand tomatoes. And I just ate one of these for the first time last night, and it was delicious. Back here, we've got a jalapeno plant, and then a green pepper plant as well. And then in the front is a chili pepper, I believe. I don't remember. Here is a watermelon vine. So I did not realize how aggressive watermelon vines are, and these have taken over. It's growing up into my tomatoes and trying to attach to them. So I'm constantly having to rip their vines off. And as you can see, they will start coming through the fence, and I'm kind of just letting it go. But I have a massive watermelon that's forming. There's a couple more down in that area, a couple over there. So these have been doing really well. And then as you can see, so this is what happens when you're not always on top of controlling them. They kind of just do their own thing. But so the rest of the garden I had planned to do a bunch of vegetables in, but I lost all of my starts this spring, and it ended up just getting to a point where it was too late to start everything again. So I decided to just throw in some wildflower seed. I try to mix in flowers with all of my produce because it helps bring in pollinators, so then they can cross-pollinate your vegetables. So that's a good tip. If you're looking to do a vegetable garden, make sure you have flowers nearby. So in here is just a bunch of different wildflowers, mostly cosmos, which are the orange and the yellow. There's some bachelor's buttons, which are these blue, beautiful blue flowers. Some annual baby's breath, which are these white, and a lot of these are kind of at the end of their blooming time. And then down here we've got, oops, this is a Chinese forget-me-not. It's a beautiful, delicate kind of periwinkle blue. Don't remember all of them, but yeah. So eventually this will be, like I said, different vegetables. I hope to have corn in here at some point, and carrots and greenery and all that stuff. So yeah, so next year we'll give it a try. All right, so we are back to the other side of my driveway, and so this is kind of a newer project this year, so I haven't completed everything with it, but my intent is to take out most of this grass. There's 2 trees above me that cast enough shade, and just the grass doesn't get enough sun, so it's just kind of a pain to keep up with. So this will eventually probably be mulched area and more plantings, but I just wanted to get a few things started, especially with evergreens because they take forever. So this is a baby Fat Albert blue spruce. So compared to the other Fat Albert blue spruces, this is not going to get as large. And this is another great option if you don't have a very large area, because this only gets about, again, 12 feet wide. And this is a really slow grower, so this one is going to take quite a while to get to maturity. But again, it's got beautiful blue foliage, and it's going to have this color throughout the whole year. So again, adds a lot of great winter interest. These 3 are hazelnuts. And what I wanted to point out is, many of you may have known if you follow me on Instagram, that I was battling Japanese beetles. So they love hazelnut shrubs, and this is what they will do to your plants if you don't stay on top of them, is they will like decimate the entire leaf and eventually all of the foliage on the plant. So it ends up looking really weathered and tattered, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. So this here is a pink flamingo tricolor willow. So this is a beautiful shrub for multiple reasons. It has a very elegant like motion to it when the breeze comes through. And the reason why it is a pink flamingo tricolor is, if you look here, the new foliage appears as pink when it emerges, and then it does fade to white. This one doesn't have a ton of the white, but I can show you that on another one in the backyard. And these will get quite big. They can get up to 10 feet tall, and they're 10 feet tall and wide in the right conditions. This here is a dark green arborvitae. So I really wanted to have something that kind of fills in this space and adds, again, winter interest to this side of the driveway. So these are relatively fast growing, so this is a great option, again, if you want to have some quick privacy. This one here is a red twig dogwood. So I do have these in other parts of the garden as well, but this is again going to have a very vibrant red color to the stems come fall and winter time. So these are a lot of times used in outdoor arrangements around the holiday season and during winter. So those red branches that you're seeing in those arrangements are typically from a dogwood. I wanted to point these out real quick. So this year I didn't plant anything in these planters just because I'm still kind of deciding what I want to do. So this gets shade all day because there is an overhang above it. But what I wanted to point out is these planters are super massive, like heavy planters. And I always preach to do a lot of your major shopping purchases towards the end of the growing season or into the fall. And this is why, because I got 2 of these planters. They are originally $209 each, and I got each of them for $52 because they had super clearance. So that is why I always suggest, even with plants, to hit up your local nurseries for some of your larger purchases like trees and shrubs to really get mature size stuff, because a lot of stuff is on clearance. And these pots are like a ridiculous steal, and they're heavy. And so it was kind of one of those things that when I bought them last year, I was like super proud of myself that I found something on such super clearance. So pro tip, check out your local nurseries at the end of summer or into fall. All right, so now we are heading into the backyard. So this area, I'll throw up with each of these areas, I'll try to throw up before and after pictures in the video so you can see what it looked like when I moved in versus what it looks like now a year later. The backyard is probably, well, the front yard is quite different too, I should say, but the backyard has quite a different look to it than when I moved in. I've added a lot of garden beds, changed the border lines, so we'll walk through all that. And again, I'll throw before and after pictures up on the screen. So if you guys have been following me on YouTube, you probably have seen me planting a lot of stuff in this backyard. One of them being this hedge of homestrep arborvitaes. So these are a really great option if you want to have a green privacy hedge. So again, these are evergreen, so they're going to stay this color throughout the whole year. So against like the winter snow, it's going to look really beautiful to be able to look out and see some green. But these will get about 8 to 10 feet tall and only about 2 to 3 feet wide. So they're going to eventually all touch and make a beautiful green hedge against my fence here to give me a little bit more privacy in the backyard. This garden here is kind of a hodgepodge of stuff, but again, I wanted to have a pollinator garden in my yard, so a garden that would attract butterflies and bees and a bunch of other essential insects. So this bed has some really awesome perennials in it that I have come to like love, and many of these I got from friends or family members. So this one is done blooming, but I wanted to show you. So this, I know I've pointed it out on my Instagram account before, but this is called Mind Your Manners. And so this is a beautiful perennial that gets these white, delicate flowers on them all the way up the stalk. And then as they fade, their seed pods will start to form. So I'm letting this go to seed because I'm hoping I can gather some seeds and be able to grow some for next year as well to expand. This here is, I don't remember the exact variety, but this is sage. Sage is a great option for a couple different reasons. One, it's beautiful. It does bloom kind of mid to late summer and into the fall. It's drought tolerant. So this is a plant that doesn't typically like a lot of water. So this is a great option if you want to have a low maintenance plant. And then sage is of course great for many different purposes. It's used for essential oils and other herbal stuff. And when you rub the leaves or the petals, it has a beautiful smell. So pollinators love the sage and they love the Mind Your Manners. So if you're really wanting to have something that like is a foolproof attractant, those are great options. This here is goldenrod, and it's just starting to bloom. So it's got these beautiful yellow kind of puffs of flowers on it. I don't know what happened. For the most part, all of my goldenrod kind of like fell flat this year. I didn't have that last year, so I'm not sure what happened there, but still looks beautiful. We've also got some phlox mixed into this garden, some different colors. I think I have a purple pink and white that kind of happen in this garden. This here is Black-Eyed Susan. So this is one of my favorites. It's a late summer blooming perennial that gets these beautiful kind of sunflower-esque flowers on them. And then sprinkled throughout there are spring flowering bulbs. So different tulips, hyacinth, I'm blanking on allium is in there. And there's a few other ones that I'm blanking on. But anyways, so those are in here. So in the spring, I'll have those that pop up. And then as those fade, all of these perennials start to come in and will eventually flower. In here was kind of an experiment area. So this again doesn't get a lot of sun. So I wanted to see what I could possibly grow in this area. I really wanted to do pumpkins. So I planted some pumpkins. I planted a watermelon and just tried some different things like peppers and tomatoes just to see how well they would do in this area. For sure gonna do pumpkins again next year. The watermelon isn't performing as well over here as it is in the vegetable garden, and the tomatoes and peppers are not doing as well as the vegetable garden itself. So no need to plant those in this area again next year, but we'll do pumpkins for sure. I do have a couple pumpkins that are coming in, so I'm super excited about that. And again, if you've been following me, you know that I battled squash vine borers. So I lost a lot of my pumpkin vine and thought I wasn't gonna get any pumpkins, but I stayed on top of killing those suckers, and now I have 2 pumpkins coming in. So show you the other one. That one's much further along. All right. So looking at this corner, this was kind of a this whole area was kind of it's morphed over the last year from what I was originally going to plan to do with this area. So my original plan was to have this where the pumpkins are, build a greenhouse, and then have a shed, and then have a rabbit hutch, because I do want to have rabbits someday, because I think that would be fun, but then also you can use their manure for composting. But as I kind of have sat on it and thought about it, I felt like this would be a better use for the pumpkin vines than doing that whole setup. And so what I'm going to do is in this area, I think I'm going to try out raspberry and blueberry bushes in this area, and then have that area remain vine crops. Back here, so I do have a compost bin. So I do compost anything that I can, just because why not? And also I have been able to use a lot of the soil from it, and it has been like amazing. So the vine garden has all compost soil in it from my own compost bin, so that was super exciting to be able to do. This kind of roped off area is, I'm gonna go over here because the sun is in my face. This roped off area is again just something that I'm kind of toying with an idea. So I think this is where, if I do build a greenhouse, I think this is where I'm going to do it, and it will be about this size. So I have kind of just had this sitting here so I can stare at it and like really take in, do I want a structure here? Is this a shape that I want? But I think this would be a really great place for it. It would also help kind of give more privacy in this back corner. All right. So back here, when I moved in, this yard was basically all grass. They had you can kind of see the old line here. They had a garden bed that ran the length of the fence, and they had all of these hazelnut shrubs in it. So I have since expanded that border, which I'll show you here as we walk around, and then moved around those shrubs. you may be able to hear it, but there is a lot of traffic sound. And so what I'm trying to do with this back area is fill it in with evergreens. So evergreens are a great option, not only just because they're pretty, but they add great winter interest, which you guys all know I'm about the winter interest. And they also add a great privacy hedge, and then also cut down on noise. So as these things mature and fill in, the noise will cut down, and then I'll have more privacy here in the back of the yard. So there's multiple plantings of a lot of these things, but I do have kind of along the very back are these skyrocket junipers. And so these are a relatively slim juniper, so they only get about 2 to 3 feet wide at maturity, and then they get about 15 feet tall. They have kind of this icy blue-green color to them, and they keep this color throughout the whole year. So again, during winter, when typically this backyard would be all white, I'll have some really nice greenery to look out at. This here is another baby fat Albert blue spruce. So I had one of these in the front yard, slow growing evergreen. This here, there's 3 of them back here. So this is an Alaskan cedar. So these are one of my favorite varieties of arborvitae because they have a more graceful branching. It's not as dense as some of them are. So I think that just adds a really pretty texture to the landscape. All right, so this tree here is a London plane tree. So one of the things that's unique about it is that it is often mistaken for a maple because the leaf structure is that of a maple leaf. However, it is not a maple, and it does not color like a maple. But I did get this tree for a pretty good deal, and so I thought I'll give it a try. I've never grown one. These get quite large. They have very beautiful architecture to the structure of their branching and trunk. And I planted it here for a couple of reasons. I wanted to put it in a spot that it could really kind of get to its full potential, but also help create more shade. The tree that's next to me is quite old, and so I wanted to start another tree close to the area that it's in so that it can start to mature, because I feel like one day this thing is going to have to come down, and I don't want to lose the shade that I have, so that is why I planted it there. So when you're planting stuff, it's really good to think about that, because you don't know when you might lose something. So, and it would be quite a different yard without the shade. So don't be afraid to do what I would call like succession. Yes. Don't be afraid to do what I call succession planting, where you're basically preparing for something to not be there anymore. You obviously want to do it in a way that they don't compete with each other, but this is a really great way to do that. Here is a Canadian hemlock. So this again is an evergreen, and one of the reasons why I like it is it does have a very, again, graceful branching to it. These are relatively fast growing. They can take part shade or full sun, which is a perk because a lot of evergreens can't take as much shade as this one can. However, in my area, they don't always do best in the winter. So as you can see, the top of this has kind of died back. So I'm hoping come spring next year, this will flesh out with some more green, but we'll see. If not, this will still get quite large. I think these can get up to 40 feet tall, so I could just cut this and it will still get quite large, I suppose. But just kind of a bummer about that. Still pretty. Let's see. Here is a Serbian blue spruce. So this again will get about, I think it's 50 to 60 feet tall and about 25 feet wide. And again, most of the evergreen specimens that I like have a very graceful, almost weeping effect. And so a Serbian spruce has some nice like arched branches as it matures. So again, adds some really nice interest. Here, So this is probably my favorite evergreen in the entire yard. I planted a weeping Alaskan cedar. I'm having a brain fart. Yeah, okay. I think I might have named that wrong. I'll put it on the screen, doesn't matter. Okay, this is one of my favorite evergreens in the yard. This is a weeping Alaskan cedar. I'm kind of taking a risk with this because I am a zone 4B, and this is a zone 5, so fingers crossed it survives our winter. I think that we're honestly going to get bumped up to a zone 5 eventually because our winters have been pretty mild lately, so I'll just make sure it gets really protected in the winter. It is kind of protected in this corner, but one of the reasons why I wanted to plant this here is because I have this lovely power line pole that I kind of want to mask with an evergreen. And this again has a beautiful weeping structure to it. It's about 12 feet wide and about 30 feet tall. And the reason why it is up on a mound is eventually, someday, I hope to have this be a waterfall with a super massive pond here. I had one of those growing up and I've missed it, so I really want to be able to put that in eventually. So the one thing I wanted to point out was, like I had said, along the back of the fence, they kind of just had a straight raised border bed. And I wanted to add some kind of pockets and dimension to the yard. So I came through and expanded the borders and gave a lot of nice curves. And eventually this will all be filled in with more shrubs and perennials and other plantings. But I really wanted to give the yard some kind of rooms, if you will, so that's not just one wide open area. So don't be afraid to do swoops and cut in some new garden areas. It's really fun to kind of add some different shape to the yard rather than just a square. All right, so this area of the yard is kind of tricky. So I'm kind of dealing with a few different things. So I've got this massive, beautiful blue spruce here, which I absolutely love, but casts a lot of shadows, drops a lot of needles, drops a lot of pine cones, doesn't get a lot of sun, obviously, underneath it. So I've kind of been trying to decide what do I want to plant underneath it that's going to give me some interest. It's going to be able to compete with the pine tree above it and also take shade. So I think what this is going to end up being is mostly a shade garden. So right now I have a bunch of different hostas that were transplanted this year, so they look terrible, so don't judge me too hard. But these will come back in the spring and flush out a lot more growth and foliage and look a lot better. I also did mix in a couple of different perennials, and these I got all from a family friend. But lungwort is in here. I've never grown it before, but it's this beautiful shade perennial that I believe it does flower. I don't know what flowers are on it, but it has kind of this spotted leaf, which is just a really unique look. And then one other thing that I'm dealing with in this area is I have a lovely air conditioner and a bunch of hose mess, and so really trying to figure out a way to help mask that. So hopefully next year, as I do more garden planning over the winter, I can start thinking about some different shrubs and stuff that can take shade and go in those areas to block some of that mess. Over here, so this is a Minnesota strain redbud tree. So this one was cultivated specifically to survive our winters here in Minnesota. Redbuds are a beautiful tree. If you do not have one and can grow one in your area, I highly suggest you get one. This is a clump form, so it has multiple trunks. In the spring, what makes a redbud super unique is along the entire length of every branch, it gets these tiny little red buds that then burst open into these pink flowers. And I'll throw a picture of it up on the screen because it's just beautiful. So the whole thing is just covered in flowers. And then as those flowers fade, it emerges these beautiful heart-shaped leaves. Now, these do fade to, I believe, kind of an orange-red, if I'm not mistaken, in the fall. So I'm super excited to see this one transition to its fall color here shortly. And just a beautiful structured tree, and pollinators also love it in the spring, so a really great option to plant in your yard. Right here, the plan for this area is to kind of have this be an extension of my pollinator garden that will then fade into the shade garden, because this gets sun basically all day. So there's different things mixed in here. There's coreopsis, there's phlox, there's balloon flower, there's black-eyed Susans, there's daylilies, there's daisies, there are some hostas, and then back here, this kind of mound of green is one of my favorite plants. It is a Walker's Low catmint. So it gets these beautiful purple flowers on it. It's past its blooming season, but it gets these beautiful purple flowers on it that the pollinators are just all over. This particular variety is rather low to the ground, so its mature size, I think only is about 18 inches high, so it stays pretty low. It's great for borders. And then obviously with the pollinators, it's a wonderful option for that. That one does have properties that make it a good bug repellent too, so you can like crush it in your hands, rub it on your skin, all those fun things. So cool plant. So during the summer, I do bring out a lot of my house plants just so they can get some good humidity and some good sun exposure. This is an avocado tree that I started from the pit. So I think that's about 3.5 years old now, so has put on quite a lot of growth being outside. One thing I wanted to point out is this ground cover. So that is it's called a juga. Has this beautiful maroon, purple, green, kind of tricolored foliage, and then it has stalks of purple flowers that burst through kind of early to midsummer. And that will spread and eventually cover a lot of the area here as well. This here is just kind of a like menagerie of indoor plants that I brought out, but then I do have this fountain because until I can get my pond, I really wanted to have some water sound out here. So this is really nice. It's right outside my living room window, so I can hear it when I'm sitting in the house. And then it just adds a nice sound out here to kind of drown out some of the traffic sound in the backyard as well. This here is again a couple different house plants mixed with a Japanese maple. So this is a tiger fern, which I absolutely love. This has beautiful striped foliage on it, dark and light green. And this is its 4th summer, I believe. So I bring it in during the winter, and compared to a Boston fern, I love this one to bring in because it's not as fussy as a Boston fern. It will drop some of its leaves, but it remains pretty full throughout the whole winter. This is a blood-good Japanese maple. This is actually a zone 5, so again, won't survive my area, but I brought it in last winter. I let it drop all of its leaves, go through a little bit of a cold spell outside, and then I bring it in before it gets too cold. And I brought it out this spring and it budded out, and there you go. So kind of an experiment for me, but I'm super glad that I did it. I got it super cheap last year in clearance, and it's just been one of my favorite things to kind of have here on the patio for some cool structure. Great, so that is my garden tour for end of summer 2020. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope that this maybe gave you some inspiration and some ideas for your yard. And I hope to do more of these tours going forward. So thank you for watching, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.